Hello and welcome back everyone to PKIdeas for another tournament reflection on the Gold Coast Open 2017, and it is time to go through round 5. Round 5, I was white playing against Jacob Chan as black, and he's a 1542 rated, so not that high but a pretty decent player, and I think he's pretty underrated. So that being said, let's get straight into a game. We started off by playing knight to f3 first move, followed by d5, c3, now knight f6, d4, e6, e3, bishop to d6, bishop to d3, castles, castles. I have played the same opening for every round that I was white. So against Zhao, you saw the structure, the Collie system structure. Next, you saw it in the game against Oleg Kirikov. That game also had the same structure, and now this one also has the same structure, and it's a derivative from the same opening. So the Collie system. That's pretty much the aim that I had for each tournament. I'm pretty sure it's Karpov that once said, in every tournament, if you work on just one small thing, you will improve a massive amount if you play a lot of tournaments. So in this tournament, mine was to play according to a specific repertoire, and now after these reflections, I'm obviously going to change my repertoire a bit, depending on the results that I got in the specific openings, but the whole aim was, as white, to try and play the Collie system, because those are the types of structures that I like. So now, moving on, number 6, castles, followed by c5. So this is a all mainline Collie. Knight b to d2, knight to c6, takes, bishop takes, e4, queen to c7, queen to e2. Here in this position, we see that the e5 square is a major contending square. So bishop to d6 was played in this position, and we see that black has now got 1, 2, 3 pieces on this e5 square. Now white, if he pushes the pawn forward, he only has 1 and 2 pieces. So black is pretty much defending this e5 square for his life. And as white, what I'm supposed to do is I'm just supposed to push this pawn forward, as I showed you with the colored arrow before. So now after move number 10, bishop to d6, I played rook to e1. Now you see I've got 1, 2 and 3 pieces on the e5 square, which allows me to push the pawn forward. Now he plays knight to g4. Let's chuck up the engine over here, and you see in this position that it's plus 0.33. So I've got a slight advantage out of the opening. In this position, I'm forced to play h3 because my pawn was being attacked by the knight, the bishop, and the other bishop. The other queen, I mean. This position, he played knight g to e5. Now here, I just realized that I couldn't necessarily take, because I'm just leaving one of his knights on the strong e5 square. So I couldn't necessarily afford to do that. So I just did e takes d5, followed by e takes d5, then knight takes e5, knight takes e5, and I played exactly knight to f3 as the engine suggests. Now in this position, this is a quirky imbalance which happens right now after knight takes d3 and queen takes e3. Notice in this position, black has the 2 bishops. It's an open position. He technically has the advantage. But if you're looking at positional play, and if you look at this bishop on c8, it's not extremely good. Let's see all the good squares that it can go to. It can go to e6 and it can go to d7, which means that those 2 squares are really bad compared to the pieces that I have. Its equivalent comparison is this white knight over here, because the dark squared bishops are paired up together, and then the other minor pieces are paired up together. So this knight compared to this bishop is more active. The knight is controlling a lot of dark squares, especially the e5 square and the g5 square, which are both important within the game. And technically this knight is better than this bishop on c8. So that's why even though black has the double bishop advantage, the position slightly favors me, because I've still got all my pieces active. So after queen takes d3, he plays queen to c4. Now here the whole aim was to guard the pawn and swap them off, and here black has the inequality of having the pawn on d5. That's an isolated queen's pawn, meaning that he has to try and defend that pawn any way that he can instead of losing it. And then what I have to do is just try and put a piece on this d4 square and try and defend the d4 square in any way that I can. And now in this position I decided to play rook to d1, and he played rook to e8. Now notice here I played queen takes e4, but instead imagine if you do takes over here, bishop to h2, check is coming. After king takes h2 I lose my queen. So that wasn't necessarily good, and that was his plan of the discovered attack, which is an indirect way of defending his pawn. So I played queen takes c4 followed by d takes c4. Now bishop to f4. Notice now if bishop takes f4, then rook takes rook is checkmate. And I pretty much got an escape square over here for my king, but he doesn't have any escape squares. Every time that someone moves a pawn, this is just a pointer, every time that someone moves a pawn, they are creating a weakness. Now in this case, the h2 square is a weakness, but I'm using that weakness as an advantage because my king needs to have space and air to breathe and not get back rank mated. So I play bishop to f4 and he plays bishop to e7, followed by rook takes d8, bishop takes d8. Now let's just stop and pause for a second here and let's compare pieces. These rooks, my white rook is better because it's going to come out either to d1 or e1 within the next move, meaning that it's more active compared to the rook on a8. Now black has the bishop pair. It's an open position, so it could be good for him, but both of his bishops are on the 8th rank, meaning that they're not active, meaning that it's going to take him time to kind of move around, remaneuver the whole position, and try and get everything under control. In this position I played rook to e1, followed by bishop to e6. In this position he had two moves to defend the checkmate. He could either play bishop to d7 or bishop to e6. Let's look at bishop to d7. If bishop to d7, I play knight to e5. And now whatever he plays, let's say bishop to d6, I take this pawn. If bishop takes, then rook here checkmate. So that was pretty much the idea that I had in this position, just to hammer down on that back rank mate attack. After bishop to e6, I played my knight to d4. After knight to d4, he played bishop to d7. Notice here, I can't really take this pawn for free, but I can take advantage of this square over here, because once this bishop moves away from this diagonal over here, then it's checkmate for him. So I played knight to f5. He plays bishop to f6. Then I play knight to d6. Now my knight's once again attacking this pawn, and he's going to be having trouble. Now he plays b5. I play bishop to e5. Reason why I wanted to swap off the bishops is because my knight on d6 is way better than his bishop on d7. Simply because it's more active, it's more centralized, and it's an attacking piece rather than a defending one like the bishop is on d7. And the bishop can only travel on the light squares, while my knight can travel on both light squares and dark squares. So he did himself a really bad move by taking the bishop on e5. He shouldn't have done that because he has the worst piece. Now after rook takes e5, true that the advantage that I have is slight, but I can work with that. I can move around and wriggle around and try and get something out of it. So now a6, rook e7, bishop to e6, knight to e4. Now he plays king to f8. Now I play rook to c7. And now he plays rook to c8. Now in terms of his defense, it's not necessarily the best thing, and because the reasoning is that it's always good to defend while attacking. So if you have a position where you have to go into full-on defense, you have to go into that, but you have to try and attack your opponent at the same time, otherwise you're just going to wither away under your opponent's attack. So after rook to c7, rook to c8 was played. Better and recommended by the computer is rook to d8. I had analyzed this before, and now it's kind of an equal position. So after rook to a7, this is what I analyzed: rook to d1 check, king over here, and then bishop to d5, attacking my knight, and then I play either knight c5, which the computer suggests, or I had something like f3 planned. f3 isn't a good move; it's just losing straight away. But after knight to c5, the position is equal. Both sides are going to lose pawns everywhere. It's an okay game, but let's just see what went on in the actual game after rook to c8. So rook to d8 was a considerably better move, giving black a bit more chances than what he got in the game. I just play rook a7. I don't want to swap off rooks. And now he plays rook to c6. Now I have nothing else to do but to try and attack on the king side on these pawns over here, because these pawns in a chain over here are gridlocked, they're strong, they have a light squared bishop defending them, so I can't really do anything about it. So I have to start an attack on my king side. So I just play knight to g5, followed by h6. And now I play knight to f3, maneuvering the knight. The aim of the knight is to go to this square over here on d4. Reason, it's guarded by a phalanx of pawns, a pawn chain over here, and it just seems like a really good piece, causing havoc on the light squares for black's position. So now after knight to f3, he plays rook to t6, knight to d4, followed by g6. Now I start my own attack. f4, and he plays h5, and I play king f2 to bring my king in, and then he plays king to g7, king to g3, king to f6, king to h4. Now that I brought my king in, I brought it into opposition, diagonal opposition to be more specific, and it pretty much gives him a chance to put himself in zugzwang. In this position, what he did was bishop to c8. He wanted to try and get his bishop down here onto this diagonal, which will be advantageous, and it's much better than the bishop being placed on the c8 to h3 diagonal, because it's not doing much on that diagonal over here. It doesn't have any squares to go to, and it lacks purpose. That's the main thing that's wrong in this position. So now I just played rook to c7, attacking his bishop. He has no purpose with the bishop, so he just goes bishop to e6, and I play g4. I just start opening up over here. H takes g4, h takes g4, followed by king to g7. And now I just play a rook to a7, and then he plays bishop to d7. Now I play king g5, moving my king forward. Notice here that if he necessarily moves this f-pawn, it's going to be really hard for him to kind of defend this rank over here. Here he played rook to d5 check, and after rook to d5 check, I play f5, g takes f5, g takes f5. Then he plays rook to d6, and I play rook to c7, and then he plays king to h7, and I play king to f4, and then f6 was played. Now in this position I play knight to e6, threatening that. It's a fork, attacking both the king and the bishop, and this bishop is going to go. And in this position he played the mistake of playing the king forward. I'll show you the reason why, because this is what happened in the game. Knight here, bishop is attacked twice by the rook and the knight. Bishop moves away and rook checkmate, and that's what happened in the game. The game ended from there. But in this position, what I want to analyze is if he goes king to g8. Here in this position, it's still better for me, simply after knight to c5. This bishop is attacked twice. Now he can play bishop to c6, and I take his pawn, and pretty much I just go around capturing all of his pieces. So notice here, if he goes back, I play knight to e4. Rook has to move again, and this pawn is under attack. Rook to b6, and I can now maneuver my king straight through and pretty much win. His king's on the back rank, his bishop can't really move, and his rook is stuck on b6. So I think I've got a winning advantage in this position. So after king to h6, he completely missed the checkmate, and the game ended over there. So now to conclude, just a bit of a pointer. It's always important to kind of know where you're attacking, simply because it can always give you an idea and a plan to follow during the game. So in this game, the queen side, I was attacking down here, but then the pawns got gridlocked, so I had no other choice than to attack over on the king side. I'm pretty sure it was Karpov that once again said that it's always good to attack on two sides. So you attack on one side, then you stop that attack, and then you convert all the advantage to the other side and attack over here. And that's pretty much what happened to Jacob in this game. He played a good game. Kudos to him for lasting this long. But unfortunately, I was the better player. I kind of outmaneuvered him in the endgame a bit, and he played tactical mistakes here and there, especially with this bishop attack and the checkmate as well. that was all tactics. But positionally, he just played much worse. He decided to go into fully defending, but he should have been kind of attacking slash defending by playing rook d8 to give himself the best chance. So that being said, thank you for watching this video. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. Please like the video if you did. And that being said, comment on what you liked or disliked, and give me some feedback as to what I can improve on. Also comment on what you thought of the game, you know, whether it was a nice game, good game, or bad game, worst game you've ever seen, whatever. And just go do all that, and then subscribe if you haven't. Hit that bell if you want to get notifications after you're subscribed. With that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.